How's it going, my peeps? It is now time for the Raw results / highlights and review video. I'll go over the results, some of the highlights in my opinion, and give you guys my thoughts, my review on the show. So it kicks off with, well actually, before Raw officially kicks off, you have like a highlight video or a video package showing what happened last week with the Daniel Bryan and the Yes movement occupying Raw. They do a nice little, video package of that. And then afterwards, Raw kicks off with Triple H coming out to the ring, talking about his match with Bryan at WrestleMania, how he's going to end the WrestleMania movement, how it's all the people's fault, the universe's fault, and basically how he's going to beat Daniel Bryan. Now, Batista then interrupts. Oh, actually, before Batista interrupts, Triple H says that he wants to say some more things to Bryan later on tonight, but anyways, afterwards, Batista interrupts, basically complains to Triple H about the possibility of a triple threat match. He says, I didn't sign up for this. I won the Rumble for a one-on-one match. I didn't sign up for a triple threat match where I can lose without even getting pinned. And then Triple H tells Batista, what's wrong with you? Daniel Bryan isn't going to beat me, so there's not going to be a triple threat. And then Randy interrupts. He also complains about, the triple threat match. You're agreeing with Batista, but then Batista and Randy start taking shots at each other. Randy telling Batista that if it wasn't for Batista's lackluster return or him not living up to the hype, then they wouldn't be in this situation, and that nobody cared when Batista left, and even less people cared when Batista came back. And then Batista says Randy sucks as the champion. They bash each other a bit. Triple H once again saying that, it's not gonna happen. Daniel Bryan isn't gonna beat him. And then Batista and Randy start arguing. Triple H, tries to get in between them and separate them, but then he gets tired of it, so he leaves. And then Batista tells Triple H, where do you think you're going? You're gonna fix this. And then Triple H starts, he says what he's sick of. He says he's sick of guys, Hollywood stars, Hollywood movie stars coming in and thinking they know more about the business than him. And then he says he's also sick of guys who are really gifted like Randy, but they can't win a match without him holding his hand. And then he says, you know what, there is going to be a triple threat at WrestleMania, but Daniel Bryan's not going to be in it. Instead, once he beats Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania, Triple H is going to put himself in the triple threat. And then Triple H left. Batista then turned around, Randy hit him with an RKO, and then he did his, I guess, Randy Orton pose, or whatever you want to call it, while Batista was down. And then, after that, once they come back from commercial, Renee Young is trying to get a word with Batista. She wants his reaction on what just happened. And he says, you know what my reaction is? It was a big mistake coming back. And then he says he's out, and he leaves. He's leaving the arena or the building. Oh, and also something I forgot to mention, in the opening segments, Randy requested a matchup against Daniel Bryan tonight in a no disqualification match, which Triple H accepted and granted him the match. And anyways, afterwards, you had the Usos versus the Real Americans, and the Real Americans actually were on the same page, and Swagger actually, saved Cesaro during the match. At some point, took him out of the ring, out of harm's way, and then he got himself in the ring, got taken out, and then one of the Usos jumps on top of Swagger. The other one went to jump on Cesaro, but Cesaro got up, hit the uppercut, got on the apron, hit the uppercut, stopped him dead in his tracks, and then he got in the ring, followed that up with the neutralizer, got the victory. The Real Americans defeat the Usos in a non-title matchup. So right now it seems like they're back on the same page. They were shaking hands, doing We the People together. So it's kind of like the same situation with the Shield, where it seemed like they were gonna split up or whatever, but now they're back on the same page, so interesting. This is definitely not how I would have pictured it, or how I would have predicted it, maybe a month back or so. But anyways, afterwards, they show a video for a new series they're starting. It's an animated series of WWE superstars using action figures or whatever. But anyways, after that, you saw Cain and the Shield backstage. Cain tells them, things got out of hand on SmackDown. We did things we regretted or whatever. And the Shield seemed like they didn't regret what they did. And then, it's basically Cain telling them to stay united, and if he can count on them, and he wants to see if the Shield is still an asset. If not, they're easily replaceable. And then following that, you have Hornswoggle handing out St. Patrick's Day gifts or whatever. And then Bad News Barrett comes out, and he delivers some bad news about St. Patrick's Day, how people are going to get drunk, this and that. And then Sheamus comes out for his matchup, not against Christian this time though. It was Sheamus versus Titus O'Neil, and pretty quick match. At some point in the match, Titus O'Neil just grabbed Hornswoggle, brought him in the ring, and kept slapping him a couple times. And then Sheamus got in the ring, and then Titus O'Neil did his like last call or whatever, the move where he grabs him and then just throws the opponent behind him. So he did that to Hornswoggle, but Sheamus was behind him, so Sheamus caught on to Hornswoggle, then he grabbed Hornswoggle and shoved him right into Titus O'Neil's crotch. Titus O'Neil then fell off out of the ring onto the apron. Sheamus took advantage of that, hit his punches on Titus O'Neil while he's on the apron. And then, oh yeah, and by the way, Christian was on commentary. And one thing I thought was really cool was Christian, I guess he got payback, or he stood up for himself for, these past couple of weeks. JBL in commentary has been making fun of Christian, calling him skinny, this and that, so Sheamus just went in on everybody on commentary, making fun of them. And anyways, Sheamus ends up winning with the Brogue Kick. After the match, Renee Young interviews him. Sheamus ends up saying that he's entering himself in the 30-man Andre the Giant Memorial match. And also Christian on commentary during the match, he also said that he was entering the matchup. So Christian didn't, sound too pleased when Sheamus said that. Anyways, afterwards, Sheamus gets on the apron, he's about to leave, and Christian comes up from behind, hits him from behind, Sheamus falls, and I think he falls also on Titus O'Neil. And then Christian grabs Sheamus, he throws him onto the steel steps, and then he follows that up with the kill switch on the floor. And that was it for that. I was pretty happy actually with that segment just because of Christian, standing up for himself, and, he just made fun of JBL for calling him skinny and all that. And even on commentary, they brought out the blue dot joke once again, where JBL said, why don't we put a blue dot over Christian's commentary? But anyways, following that, it was John Cena talking about Bray Wyatt, about the matchup. He says he's afraid of Bray Wyatt, but most of all, he's afraid of the universe, the WWE universe, listening to what he has to say about how all of this, and, he, I guess, points to his shirt, is fake or is phony. And, he goes over how important the match is. And he says that at WrestleMania, he's not just fighting for himself or fighting Bray Wyatt, he's fighting for every single man, woman, and child that has believed the word that he said. And then Bray Wyatt interrupts, saying that childs or kids, they don't realize or understand that superheroes aren't real. And anyways, Bray Wyatt is like wearing John Cena's t-shirt, he's wearing his wristbands. He says he could be like John Cena, sign autographs, go to his plastic wife back in his castle. And anyways, eventually, he says that at WrestleMania, he doesn't care if he gets taken down, if he dies, or whatever. All he cares about is that at the end of the night, people see John Cena the way he sees John Cena. Then he ends it by saying, follow the buzzards. Following that, it was Daniel Bryan versus Randy in the no disqualification match. Great matchup. I really liked how Randy was really aggressive in the matchup. He really, was just taking it to Daniel Bryan, he gave him a back suplex on top of the announcer's table, hit him a bunch of times with the kendo stick, give him another back suplex onto the barricade, and he also hit the backbreaker in a unique fashion, the Randy Orton backbreaker, in a unique fashion on the outside of the ring. And anyways, to sum it up, or, the end of the matchup, you had Randy getting the advantage again by hitting Daniel Bryan with a steel chair to the back outside the ring. And then puts Daniel Bryan back in the ring, grabs the steel chair, or actually he still had the steel chair, and he goes in the ring himself, and then right when he gets in the ring, he gets speared out of nowhere by Batista, and then Daniel Bryan runs at Batista, hits him with, I guess it was trying to go maybe for the running knee, but it looked more like a running drop kick, I don't know. He hits him with a running knee / drop kick, and then he pins Randy, and he gets to 1, 2, 3, so Daniel Bryan beats Randy with a little help from Batista. Daniel Bryan gets out of the ring, he celebrates, and then he leaves, and Batista gets back in the ring, and then he hits a Batista bomb on Randy. And he was actually wearing some jeans, and he actually hit the Batista bomb. Not just a regular power bomb, but an actual sit-down Batista bomb. After that, Paul Heyman comes out, and he shows a video package of basically The Undertaker versus the last couple of opponents, Mark Henry, Shawn Michaels, Triple H, and he showed Brock Lesnar, just beating up these opponents, showing how while The Undertaker struggled with these opponents and barely won, Brock Lesnar just destroyed them. They didn't show CM Punk though, although CM Punk, did get beat by Brock Lesnar, but they showed Brock beating up Triple H, Shawn Michaels, Mark Henry. Anyways, following that, you see Triple H and Stephanie arguing backstage, and she tells him, what's gonna happen, when you beat Daniel Bryan, and then get put in the triple threat match and win the championship. Are you gonna go back on the road, this and that? He tells her, to leave it, and he'll take care of it, and then she looks at him and says, you better. And then after that, it was Fandango versus Gold. I don't feel like saying however he says it, but anyways, Fandango versus Goldust. And we saw kind of like the old Goldust in this match, more so than the past couple of months. He mocked Fandango's dancing, he did the usual creepy stuff Goldust used to do. And in the end of the match, actually, at some point in the match, Goldust went for like a top rope Hurricane Rana, but he was on the top rope, Fandango was not. Fandango was just standing up. And freaking Goldust jumped from the top turnbuckle and delivered it, but I don't know, it seemed kind of botched maybe, or Goldust fell the wrong way, because afterwards he was down for a while, longer than Fandango was, and he was holding it, I don't know, he was holding his gut or something. Seemed like something was wrong, or he landed wrong. But anyways, Fandango hits a suplex, and then he tries to go for the leg drop. Goldust rolls out of the way, and then he hits his finisher, the final cut, covers him and wins the match. But after the match, Goldust seemed upset, and just kicked the bottom rope. So I don't know what went wrong there, and he was also busted open like above his eye. But yeah, bottom line, Goldust beats Fandango. Anyways, after that, you had Cain, and he was talking about the Yes movement, the Occupy Raw movement, or whatever, last week. And he goes over how Daniel Bryan wasn't alone in it, or he couldn't have done it on his own. And then he says, we did some investigating or something like that, and they found out somebody was helping Daniel Bryan, and it's somebody from Memphis. And then I was like, oh, I know who it is. It's Jerry the King Lawler. Because last week, JBL was accusing Jerry the King Lawler anyways, because Jerry the King is from Memphis. And yeah, so yeah, Cain accuses Jerry the King Lawler, tells him to get in the ring. And Jerry the King Lawler kind of acts like, he's like, he doesn't know what's going on. And, he's saying it's on him. So then Cain brings out the Shield. Shield's music hits, they come out, and they tell Jerry the King Lawler to get in the ring. They force him to get in the ring. So he gets in the ring, and then they follow up in the ring, and then Cain takes off his suit. He's preparing to beat Jerry the King Lawler's ass, and then he tells Jerry the King Lawler, I know you're not exactly in fighting shape, so I'm not really gonna enjoy what I do to you. But he's like, well, but then again, I kind of will. And then he tells Jerry the King Lawler, do you have any final words before we do this? And then the Shields. I don't know if Jerry the King Lawler said something, actually, I'm not sure. But Seth Rollins grabbed the microphone. Actually, Jerry didn't say anything. Seth Rollins grabs the microphone and tells Jerry the King Lawler, I've said Jerry the King Lawler a bunch of times now, haven't I? Anyways, he says, I have a feeling Daniel Bryan's not going to save you because the Shield always does what's best for business. And then they slowly turn around and they face Cain, and then the crowd pops, and then Cain is like, what? What are you doing? And then Jerry the King Lawler just gets out of the ring, runs away. And then Cain starts attacking the Shield, and the Shield attacking back. Cain tries to go for the choke slam on Seth Rollins. Dean Ambrose just takes Cain's hand off Seth Rollins, and then Roman Reigns spears Cain, and then they follow it up with the good old triple powerbomb. And then they pose over Cain, put their fists together, and that was it for the segment. And then it was a Divas match. It was the fucking tag titles. Naomi returned, but she had like an eye patch because of her eye injury. Versus AJ and Tamina. The Bell Twins were on commentary. Naomi ends up getting the win for her team when she hits a split-legged moonsault on AJ, covers her, and wins the match. And then after the match, AJ yells at Tamina. She says, when I'm alone, I win the matches, and then when you're with me, I lose matches. She keeps yelling at Tamina, and then Tamina finally pushes AJ, And then AJ falls down and just looks at Tamina, and Tamina looks at AJ, and that was it. And then they announce that Mr. T is going to the Hall of Fame. And then after that, it was an 8-man tag team match. It was the Big Show, Big E, Dolph Ziggler, and Mark Henry versus Del Rio, Ryback, Curtis Axel, and Damien Sandow. Big Show's team ends up winning when Big Show gets the hot tag, and everybody takes out everybody over the top rope. And then Damien Sandow is the legal man, so is the Big Show. Damien Sandow hits Big Show from behind, just punches him. Big Show just turns around, chokeslams him, covers him, and Big Show's team win the match. After the match, Renee Young catches up to Batista once again. She tells him, "Oh, so you didn't leave the arena, so does that mean you didn't quit?" And then Batista says, "I never quit anything." And then he says, whether it's whether it's Triple H or Daniel Bryan, he's gonna, get what he came here to get, and that is the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. And then after that, it was Bray Wyatt versus Kofi Kingston. Beforehand, they showed a video package of the feud between Bray and John Cena to hype up the match. And it was a squash match between him and Kofi Kingston. Bray wins the matchup pretty quickly with Sisters Abigail. And then after that, it was time for the ending segment, which was a man-to-man, face-to-face between Triple H and Daniel Bryan. So Triple H comes out, Daniel Bryan comes out, and Triple H goes over what Daniel Bryan did last week, how he crossed the line, and how Triple H will have to end all of this. And, he says he actually respects Daniel Bryan, and that that he's dumped so much on top of Daniel Bryan these past couple of months, and Daniel Bryan's still here, and anybody else would have quit. I guess he was, referring to CM Punk there, because actually said anybody else would have went home. And at that point, the crowd started chanting CM Punk. But anyways, he extends his hand to Daniel Bryan when he says, but he actually respects Daniel Bryan. And he says, may the best man win. But Daniel Bryan doesn't shake his hand. And then Triple H says, that's fine. I would have did the same thing, or probably much worse. And then Stephanie comes out, and she yells at Triple H, telling him, you respect him, what, this and that. And then she brings out some officers, telling them to arrest Daniel Bryan for what he did last week. So they come down the ring, get inside, and they surround Daniel Bryan. Triple H gets outside the ring. He confronts Stephanie and tells her, what are you doing? I said it was okay. It was, that I was putting it aside, what Daniel Bryan did last week. And then inside the ring, the officers put Daniel Bryan down and, handcuff him. And then Triple H goes back in the ring. But before he does, he kind of smiles to Stephanie, and Stephanie smiles too. Goes back in the ring, and at that point, it's a setup. So he goes back in the ring, and he tells the officers, come on, let go of him, this isn't what I want. And he's like, besides, you guys aren't real police officers. And at that point, they leave, and then he says, I'm gonna enjoy doing this. And then he kicks Daniel Bryan. He beats the shit out of him for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, something like that. It was a long period of time. He was just beating him up, punching him, kicking him, throwing him over the barricade, onto the steel steps, on top of the announcer's table twice. He just really beat him up. And this was all, of course, while Daniel Bryan was handcuffed. And then Stephanie also got in, and she got a couple slaps in. And Daniel Bryan was like, you hit like a girl, and then she slaps him some more. And then Triple H puts Daniel Bryan back in the ring, and he hits a pedigree on Daniel Bryan in the ring. And then Stephanie gets in the ring too. She and Triple H kiss, and then she mocks the yes chant, and Triple H says, this is all ours, and his music hits, and that was it for Raw. So, highlights of the show. Man, this show was just great. This was an awesome Raw, so it was plenty of highlights. One of the highlights I liked the most, personally, was the Shield turning face. I like that. They turned on Cain. Well, actually, it would seem kind of obvious that they were going to turn on Cain, that they really weren't going to listen to Cain. But it was a pretty cool moment there, seeing the Shields turn their back on Cain, or face Cain, and, attack him, spear him, hit the triple powerbomb. And also, Daniel Bryan versus Randy match, good matchup. It was just a good Raw overall. From the opening segment to, the last segment. Last segment was awesome too. We haven't seen a beatdown like this in a long time. This was a brutal... Oh, I forgot to mention. As part of the beatdown, like the most brutal point of the beatdown is Triple H grabs Daniel Bryan and put him like right next to the steel steps. Not steel steps, I mean the steel posts. Daniel Bryan was like lying down in the ring, but he had his head right in front of the steel post, and then Triple H grabs a steel chair and slams or hits the chair, hits Daniel Bryan's head with the chair, and Daniel Bryan's head, of course, hits the back of his, hits his head on a steel post. So yeah, highlights, man, the beatdown, Shield turning face. I like the opening segment too. It was an entertaining opening segment right there. And with Triple H saying that if he wins, he gets put in the triple threat, it makes things that much more unpredictable. The Bray Wyatt, promo, that was another highlight. It was a great show, like I said. This Raw, I rated last Raw, I think, an 8.5. This Raw, I'd say, if I rated last week's Raw an 8.5, this Raw is like a 9 or a 9.5. It was a really, really good show. So, going into WrestleMania, watching this Raw has really got me hyped up for WrestleMania, for every single match, that's been announced so far. And now we also know we know of more participants that are going to be in the Andre the Giant Battle Royal. You've got, I believe, Damien Sandow, Del Rio, but we already knew Del Rio was going to be in the match. Big Show, I kind of figured Big Show was going to be in the match, but now it's confirmed. I think they confirmed 11 superstars so far for the match, so there's like 19 superstars left. And, the Bray Wyatt versus John Cena match is getting more interesting now. Also, the match versus Triple H and Daniel Bryan, really. Now this is, the build up to the matchup is great, especially, the ending segment tonight. And, yeah, that's pretty much all I gotta say. I don't want to keep, make this video too long now. It's already 21 minutes or so. So anyways, as always, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, you can click that like button down below. I'd really appreciate it. And with that said, I'm out. By the way, did I rate Raw? I don't know. But anyways, it was a really good show. 9 to 9.5 on 10. Awesome show. Anyways, I'm out, guys. See ya.